This video is made possible by Second Call Defense. Second Call Defense provides immediate, upfront legal protection for a member who is forced to use any legal weapon for self-defense. So protect yourself today with Second Call Defense. I did. You'll find the link in the description. Hi, I'm Joel Persinger. I'm the Gun Guy. Thank you very much for all of your support of GunGuyTV. I am very grateful for everything that you do. Please check us out on these alternative locations because YouTube is very, very sketchy. Rumble, BitChute, those are probably better in a lot of respects. But pick the one you like the best. We're on all of them. You might also check out the GunGuyTV Firearms podcast. It's an audio podcast that I try to do twice a month if I don't get pulled away with other stuff, and you'll find it on your favorite podcast player. I think it's even on Amazon Music, believe it or not. And then if you would like to support the channel, I urge you to check out the GunGuyTV crew, because that's where I post exclusive content for folks that you can't get anywhere else, and it does help keep the channel going. All right, we're going to have an interview today with Sam Paredes from Gun Owners of California. The main reason for that is that, frankly, with all the other stuff going on in the country and around the world, I have kind of lost track of what's happening in California, and I suspect that I'm not the only one. So I've asked Sam to come on and go over that with us so that we can get back on track and understand what's happening within this state, because as California goes, so goes the rest of the country a lot of times. As Sam is fond of saying, California either affects or infects the rest of the nation. So let's go talk to Sam and figure out what's happening in what used to be called the Golden State. Sam, thank you very much for joining me again. I really, really do appreciate it. I have to confess that I probably, like a lot of Californians, have not kept an eye on what's happening in California with our Second Amendment rights. Considering we have inflation, gas prices, the whole thing with Ukraine, the Russian threatening nuclear strikes, I think he just does that to rattle sabers, but nevertheless, and Lord knows what else. Oh, and then let's see, Elon Musk buying Twitter. Let's see, the Johnny Depp and his ex-wife, whose name I can't remember, Amber something, and their drama, which people are paying attention to. Lord knows I have enough drama. I don't need to watch that. But as a result, I have to admit, I'm not as up to date on California stuff as I should be. So what I would absolutely appreciate, and I suspect I'm not the only one, I'd really appreciate it if you just update us on what the heck is happening with our Second Amendment rights here in what used to be called the Golden State.
Well, I have this list of everything that they're trying to do to us at the California State Capitol. And of course, it's all a massive infringement on the Second Amendment. So we'll talk about the legislature, we'll talk about elections, and at the end, if you want to talk about what's happening in the courts, which will affect everything up and down the food chain, we can do that. Primarily here in the state of California, the legislature is trying to do everything it can to continue to infringe on our Second Amendment rights. As you well know, we have more gun laws here in the state of California than pretty much anywhere else in the country, maybe the world. They control you thinking about buying a gun, transporting a gun, using a gun, selling a gun, giving a gun away, everything. They have controls on absolutely everything. And who do these controls affect? They only affect law-abiding citizens. So since we've got assault weapons bans, magazine bans, we've got precursor parts laws, which still have not clearly been defined as to what precursor parts are. They infer what they are, but we'll talk about that. We have this the 10-day waiting period. We have the roster of guns that are handguns that are available for sale in the state of California. That number, as of this morning, is down to 788. And when you take into account that many of these are actual slight variations of the same models, the real number of guns that are available to Californians for purchase is probably closer to around 250 out of the tens, well, I don't know, thousands and thousands of firearms, handguns, models that are available to all any law-abiding citizen in the rest of the country. We're down to this very small number. In the legislature, they've got bills to ban gun shows on public property, particularly fairgrounds, any property that's owned by the state. They don't realize time and time again when we've gone to court, when we've testified that firearm sales and transfers and gun shows are lawful activities conducted by law-abiding citizens. They have yet to produce a single instance where a crime has been committed at a gun show in the state of California in the last, you pick a number, 20 years, 15 years, 18 years. But because they are so dastardly that people can gather together to admire firearms and buy firearms and parts and ammunition in one location on public facilities, they're just going nuts, and they want to ban gun shows at fairgrounds that are owned by the state, operated by the various counties, and basically on any government-owned property. They as well, there's a bill that will allow anyone to file a lawsuit against a firearms manufacturer, a firearms dealer, a vendor, or wholesaler if they believe that they have done something that is contrary to law. So it isn't this government that will be filing lawsuits against firearms industry members. It will be individuals. This is patterned after what happened in Texas. And Joel, you and I have talked about this before, that what happened in Texas is that the Supreme Court did not say that it was an abortion law in Texas that was passed that said that anybody who believes that somebody is conducting an illegal abortion can sue the provider of abortions. There was a lawsuit that was filed by the pro-abortion people. And what the court said is that we are not going to prevent this law from going into effect while this case goes through the legal process. Well, Governor Newsom here in the state of California took that as an offense and decided to say, well, if they can do it with abortion, we're going to do it with guns. So we're going to open it up so that anybody, the language is so vague, anybody can sue anyone for anything that they believe that they don't like, It doesn't even have to be illegal. It could be the marketing techniques that they use and the marketplace that they're trying to focus on for selling of firearms. Anything that's focused on youth shooting, like the youngsters that are going through our youth shooting programs and Boy Scouts and high school competitive shooting teams, and industry members who focus marketing towards those are up and coming Olympic shooters, where the industry focuses on marketing on providing products for our young shooters. That will be a legal challengeable situation where a civil lawsuit can be filed. So there are no real clear definitions. This is a horribly dangerous and bad bill. And in essence, admitted by the other side, their goal is to bankrupt as many people in the firearms industry as they can. They look at the lawsuit settlement in the Remington case related to Sandy Hook. They said, Remington lost. They admitted they had to pay, they had to settle, they knew they were in the wrong. Well, that is also an aberration of the truth. In fact, it was insurance companies. Remington as a firearms company ceased to exist. They went bankrupt. So it wasn't Remington that came up with the settlement. It was insurance companies in order to mitigate the costs of the continuing the legal challenges. So it wasn't an admission on anybody's part. But these civil lawsuits bills are very, very dangerous. They're continuing to demonize and focus on ghost guns, unserialized firearms. They continue to refer to reports by law enforcement agencies that the number of ghost guns that have been collected by law enforcement officials in fighting crime, the numbers are rising from 400% down in Los Angeles, I believe the number was. So it was from 40 some or under 100 guns that they've confiscated to now several hundred. So that number is supposedly huge. What they don't tell you is that any firearm that has been manufactured since they first started putting serial numbers on them, anytime that a criminal obliterates the serial number, well, that gun becomes a ghost gun. Well, that's been happening for a very, very long time, and they've never tracked those and put them in a category, but now they are. So they're included with the 80% lowers that have been built into full guns. Now, law-abiding citizens, they follow the law. They contact the Department of Justice, they get a serial number assigned, they apply it to this 80% lower that they built. I think that's dumb. It's useless because there is no indication, no studies have ever shown that registration of firearms has led to any substantial crime fighting benefit. They don't solve crimes. All they do is they find out who owned the gun, and no crimes are solved. So this only affects law-abiding citizens who are complying with the law, whether they like it or not, because they are law-abiding citizens. Criminals continue to disobey these laws, and they're not going to stop doing that. By definition, they don't follow the laws. And we got another bill to ban gun shows in Ventura specifically, and there's another bill to do it statewide. Advertising to minors, we talked about that. Of course, there's a bill to address the issue of firearms use in motion picture productions, setting safety standards and on firearms and ammunition. Well, that will speak for itself. We were successful in stopping or amending a significant bill that affected all parents, and that was a bill that would require all schools to communicate with the parents of their students and require them to report to the school the number of guns they had, how they had them stored, and if their children had access to them. This was so that if school officials thought that a child had the potential for being a mass murderer, they would be able to send the police to that child's parents' home to confiscate their firearms. Terrible infringement on privacy rights. Even the ACLU was against that bill because of the massive intrusion. So that has been amended. And now what will happen is that the schools will be required, if SB 906 continues to make it through the process, to forward to all parents every year at the beginning of the year when they send all the information on the school, safe storage laws, so that people have this information, but no reporting of ownership will be required any longer.
If this doesn't scare the crap out of people, nothing will. I mean, it's just astounding me. It's endless. It's just endless. I'm amazed at the list that you've gone. I'm sorry, I'm interrupting. Keep going.
No, you're not. And basically all of the issues that I've just talked about, there are multiple bills dealing with these issues. Here is the single most insidious bill. Our good friend, Assemblyman Mark Levine, had a bill last year to charge an excise tax, 10% on handguns and 11% on long guns and ammunition at the point of purchase, so that everybody who bought a gun or bought some ammunition would be charged this excise tax. It required a 2/3 vote of the legislature. He could not get 2/3 of the members to agree to it. So thinking that he could pressure them, he changed that bill last year into an urgency bill, which in essence did nothing except gave him another bite at the apple. It did not pass. He could not get 2/3 votes in both houses in order to pass this bill. Well, this year, he's the Energizer Bunny of the anti-gunners. He took a bill that he had that had to do with, I don't know, solar panels or saving energy or something like that. Had nothing to do with anything in the penal code. What he did is he gutted that bill and refilled it with the language on the excise tax. So that bill is with us again. It's AB 1227, Firearms Excise Tax by Assemblyman Mark Levine. It still requires a 2/3 votes. During this time, he has been working very hard to try to pick up the members that he did not have. I do not believe that he has enough votes, but he's going to try to jam it through the legislative process. My sense is that during an election year, particularly when people are running in new districts, representing people that they've never represented before, in districts that have changed, in some cases, the makeup of the districts, that members will not be willing to vote on an issue as controversial as this, raising taxes. So our hope and desire and our efforts are going to be to make sure that AB 1227 also goes into the waste bin of legislative gobbledygook, and we're fighting that. But Joel, it's endless. It's absolutely endless. Just last week, I went to the Assembly Appropriations Committee to talk about a bill that was going to require the Department of Justice to inform local law enforcement agencies when somebody who is prohibited attempted to buy a gun. We were actually neutral on the bill because law enforcement informing law enforcement that somebody who shouldn't have a gun is trying to buy a gun, we don't so much have an issue with that. So when I got up to testify in person, because I have been cut off in the telephonic testimony so many times, I went in person and got up there to testify, and I was trying to explain to the committee that given the Department of Justice's track record on running programs, particularly the Armed Prohibited Persons System, APPS program, which was down to about 13,000 people that the state of California knew that people who should not have guns, the records showed that they still had guns registered to their names. Well, that number is over 24,000 now. So they can't keep up with that. And so I just wanted to inform them that adding an additional program where Department of Justice has to do more work is probably something that they should consider as not being so wise. The chairman cut me off. No one had spoken against this bill in the opposition. Of course, the proponents had an opportunity to testify as to why this bill was good, but nobody had spoken against it. When I tried to express my concerns, when he cut me off, it ticked me off. And I said, well, in that case, Gun Owners of California is opposed to this bill. And I'm Sam Paredes representing Gun Owners of California. And I went and I sat down, which caused a big stir because all of the Republican members on the Appropriations Committee, they follow our recommendations very carefully. And I don't believe that any Republican member of Appropriations has voted contrary to our position on bills in this whole legislative session for a year and a half now. Well, when they found that we opposed it, the vice chairman, who's a Republican, came down and sat with me and said, Sam, you guys had no position on that. This was just an informational bill. What the heck is going on? So I told him how I felt. And he said, totally get it. Totally get it. So he went up there and told all of the Republican members what it was that happened. And so we're good to go. We're squared away with them. But that's the kind of junk that happens at the Capitol. Whenever we go up to testify, the other side gets 5 minutes to talk about it. We get 2 minutes total. Everybody who's going to talk against it gets 2 minutes to testify against these bills. And that's just plain flat out unfair.
Sam, is there any opportunity for us? I mean, I'm looking at this list, right? I just scribbled down a few things. Is there any opportunity for us to replace some of these folks in the legislature in the state of California? Because the reason I asked the question is probably an obvious one. Californians have got to be tired of $6 a gallon and almost $7 a gallon gas, depending on where you go. I go to Costco and it's $5.90, $5.50. I'm at my place in Arizona and it's $1.50 cheaper, right? I mean, all you do is go over to Yuma and it's $1.50 cheaper. So they've got to be tired of paying through the nose for gas. The cost of housing out here is insane. I mean, I just rented one of our rental properties for $600 more a month than I could have rented it for 3 months ago. That's how much rents have gone up. Wow. And I'm happy to have the money, but the point is that it's making life really difficult for people. The price of food, name something, everything is going up. And so folks have got to be tired of this kind of crazy leadership. A lot of that is national, but the gas prices most certainly aren't. We pay $1 and something a gallon in just taxes and fees and stuff like that go to California that are specific to California. Certainly a lot of the cost of living, all of the cost of living issues in California, honestly, I can't think of one that hasn't been caused by the terrible leadership we have in this state. So for me and you, and for the folks probably watching this show, gun ownership is a big deal. It's the big deal in some respects. And the Second Amendment, the First Amendment, they're huge. The Constitution is a big deal to you. It's a big deal to me. I have a copy of it right up there. And I read it along with the Federalist Papers and study it and so on. A lot of folks don't. But is there a chance, based upon where we are with all this other stuff, in addition to the gun rights stuff, that we might be able to throw some of these people out? Or is the system so rigged in California that our votes don't mean anything?
Well, it is rigged in the sense that we have twice as many Democrat voters as we have Republican voters. So that in that sense, it is, by definition, rigged. But what you point out is very true. More and more people, and I think that the left is underestimating how much the issues of crime, inflation, gasoline prices, all of these things are at the top of the voters' minds, to the point to where we are now, I believe, in this election year, going to have the opportunity to maybe pick up some seats where under normal circumstances we would not. Now, we don't believe that we're going to change the total makeup of the legislature, but we believe that we will have an opportunity to potentially pick up enough seats to remove the 2/3 supermajority of the legislature and make them include the more conservative members a part of the conversation on budgets, on tax increases, on anything that costs more. We hear the legislature talking, the governor talking about, well, we're thinking about suspending the gas tax, which is like $1.50 to lower, suspending it temporarily so that people can afford to buy gas a little more easily, or sending everyone in the state of California a $400 check to help mitigate the costs of gasoline increases and food increases and stuff. Now, of course, that they're talking about sending that check to people who don't own cars, who are homeless.
So I guess, look, here's the argument to all of that I know I'm going to see in the comments, and this is why I wanted to address this with you. We have ballot harvesting in this state, which is essentially, I'm going to call it what it is. It's stuffing the ballot box. It's a way to lie and cheat and steal elections, and that's what they do. And that was put into effect by the liberals legislature. And if you're a liberal, I don't mean to insult you. We have a lot of liberals who own guns who are classic liberals. There's a difference between a classic liberal and somebody who's this crazy whack job way over on the left, burn the country to the ground people. There's a totally different set of people right there. The Democratic Party that was a Democratic Party when I was growing up is not the Democratic Party anymore. Let's call it what it is. But the point is that we have all these ways for them to cheat, regardless of how we vote. How does that? I mean, a lot of people just have given up with that. What would you say to them?
Well, first of all, we cannot give up. There is a way of the non-progressive radical left, all those of us who are more conservative, more middle of the road, to participate in the elections process and be ethical about it by making sure that our family members, our friends who cannot have not been involved, we encourage them to vote and walk them through the process. In essence, we are harvesting votes, but we are not creating the votes. We are not the ones who are going to senior centers and with people who are registered to vote but don't have the mental capacity to do it, and them going out and helping them fill in their ballots, and then collecting them and then taking them in bundles to the voter registrar's offices or to the voter boxes and stuffing those ballots there. Joel, my first experience as a professional in the political arena here in the state of California was in 1990 when I ran as a manager a state Senate campaign that included Santa Cruz County, Monterey County, and most of San Luis Obispo County. We won Monterey County, we won San Luis Obispo County, and we lost Santa Cruz County. And the interesting thing about it was that in Santa Cruz County, there were 700 votes. We lost the race by 700 votes, and there were more than 700 votes that were cast by people who were dead, were not on the voter rolls, were not actually residents, and we lost the campaign. But that taught me that there's something wrong with the system, and somebody is gaming it in an illegal manner in order to gain political advantage. We don't have to do that. Republicans, no party preference, Democrats are all facing the same difficulties and challenges that you and I are facing. And what we're trying to do is go beyond the party designation and focus on those hot button issues: cost of gasoline, the rising crime rates. Why is it that here in the state of California, where we have more gun control laws than any other state, we have a rising crime rate? I mean, if you follow what the left says, more gun laws will reduce gun violence. That is absolutely not true. And I think that we're seeing a backlash against that kind of gibberish that is spoken by the left. Of the people that are buying guns here in the state of California, more than half of them are not Republicans. More than half of them are women. And more than half of them are people of color, Hispanic and African American. What does that tell you? It tells you that people are waking up and they're deciding, oh crap, if I'm going to defend myself in my own home, no matter where I live, whether I live in East LA or South Central or Bayou Logan in San Diego, or somewhere in Sacramento or Tenderloin in San Francisco, I need to protect myself as well.
Here's the thing that Californians, I think, regardless of where they stand politically, should know. The reason why the gas prices are so high, the reason why we have the economic problems that we're all facing, unless you're got so much money you don't care, which I suppose that could be possible. The reason why we have the gun issues that we have in this state with our rights being restricted, the reason why the government can come knock on your door because your neighbor down the street said that you might be scary and take all your guns without due process, the reason why there's an opportunity for them to, you mentioned this law where the school or somebody says something about the parents with their guns, a kid might be a problem, and they get to go knock on the door and without due process just go through the house and take stuff. The reason why our rights in California are restricted to such an incredible degree, the reason why they could lock you down until you couldn't leave your house during COVID and that you had to get all these things that they do is because, this is a big deal, is because of this number I wrote down here, 2/3. It's because for quite some time, the legislature in the state of California has had a veto-proof 2/3 majority leftist. We have a leftist governor who, before he became governor, screwed up the city of San Francisco to the point of ridiculousness, and now he's doing the same thing with the state. And we have a 2/3 majority legislature that will pass whatever they want. And the folks who are in the middle, maybe they're more in the middle or they're more conservative, they have no voice. And there's no chance for them to change anything. If, as Sam just explained, we can change that, if all we can do is take away that super majority is what they call it, so that they now have to work across the aisle, as they say, they have to get some people on the more conservative and center way of thinking politically to actually agree to something before it can become something that goes and sits on our leftist, crazy government governor's desk. All of a sudden, a lot of this stuff comes to a screeching halt because they're not going to be able to get that kind of support. Right. So if we can do that, and if there's a chance to do that now because of all of the pain we're all suffering through, not just with the firearms issue, then I'm down. What do we do? How do we do it? I mean, let us know, Sam. You tell us. What do we do? How do we do it?
Okay. In the next couple of days at the gun owners website, gunownersca.com, we're going to be posting our scorecard for all of the people who are running for Assembly and Senate throughout the state of California. That is where our focus is on. We're working with California Rifle and Pistol Association and NRA to on sheriff's races, which are super important, on district attorneys races, which are also super important, but we are focusing on the state legislature. That's where I think we'll see the most change. You'll be able to go find your district and find out how the candidates stack up. In a lot of races, they refuse to answer our questionnaires when they're candidates. That tells you something. Every one of them had a chance. We did follow-up calls, we did follow-up emails to try to get as many people to respond here in the primary. This is important. After the primary, when we have the general election, we are going to make sure that we point out to everybody which candidates are the ones who support your rights, whether they're Republicans or Democrats, it doesn't matter. Which ones are the ones who are continuing to push us off the edge of the flat earth into oblivion. We are going to let everybody know who the good guys and gals are and who the anti-constitutional people are, and that'll give everybody an opportunity. Joel, I believe that the pendulum is on the verge of swinging back our way. And if we can make any progress on the 2/3 supermajority, that is a clear indication that people are starting to pay more attention to these issues because it is now affecting them in their pocketbooks, in their homes, with their children, with their schools, at the grocery store, at the gas station. And at some point in time, when they learn that, hey, it's the guy that I voted for that is passing all of this crap and is costing me money and taking away my freedoms, I need to do something different. So that's what we are going to be focusing on in this election. Now, everybody has to remember that we just went through a redistricting, a reapportionment of the districts. So all of the districts in the state of California changed a little bit. The ones we are focusing on are the ones that are creating an opportunity for us to have more of an impact. We have limited resources, so we are focusing on those races where changing those, we have a better opportunity to do so, and will improve the numbers for us in order to be able to stop all of this craziness that's going on. And then we will continue throughout the next 10-year period with these districts to inform people as to who it is that is taking away their rights and who it is that is trying to protect and restore their rights. So the elective process is incredibly important. A lot of people say, I give up. What can we do? It's a lost cause. You know what? When people say that, they are, I believe, disrespecting our founding fathers who gave us a political system in our Constitution that gave us the responsibility to be active in the political process. We need to get people who believe like we do, and I believe that that is a majority of people, to stop focusing on parties and start focusing on policy and rights and the Constitution and vote accordingly. That's our job. Our job here at Gun Owners of California is to inform as many gun owners, of which there are over 1 million new ones here in the state of California. We had over 6 million of us who voted against the Prop 63. That is a lot of voters, and those voters can help us in these marginal districts where we can have an impact to first stop the craziness and continue to grow so that we can push things back to where they should be, to the golden state that we once were. People say, Sam, you're starry-eyed, you're it's an impossibility. Nothing is impossible if we decide to do it and work hard.
I don't think you're starry-eyed about this, and the reason I say that is you and I both, we're not that different in age, and we both lived long enough to watch the state kind of go, the pendulum to swing.
Right.
And it does. And so if you're younger than Sam and me, you probably don't realize that, but political winds change and everything ebbs and flows. And so the reason why I asked the question and the reason why I pointed out the 2/3 and is I wanted Sam to go through that because it's important for us to realize that the winds, I think, are changing. I think we're becoming the world is changing. It's moving more toward a populist, nationalist view of things. You're seeing it all around the world, and some with some success and some not, but the movement is still there. And I think that's happening in the United States as well. We have all this stuff in the legislature in California that's a battle. However, I agree with Sam. I think we can make the change in the legislature if we work together and we are diligent about it. I think we can make that happen. And at the same time, we have stuff sitting at the Supreme Court, which is going to drag California kicking and screaming into the adherence of the Second Amendment. Does that mean that they'll stop trying to come up with every cockamamie, goofy law they can pass and make us fight them over it? No. But I mean, just a Bruin case, depending on how that's settled, and we'll know potentially next month how they're going to do that. And if what we've seen are any indicators, we might have a great decision. In fact, I'll ask Sam, would you explain the Bruin case very quickly and what effect that might have?
The courts are an area where we have the potential for gaining the most progress in restoring the Second Amendment and then protecting it and defending it subsequent to that. New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin is a case where the plaintiffs challenged the way that the city of New York issued their concealed carry weapons permit, requiring people to come up with extraordinary and special reasons as to why they should be allowed to carry a firearm to protect themselves in New York City. It is before the Supreme Court. They argued it last year in November. The decision is made. The opinion has been written. We're waiting to see whether it's Justice Amy Coney Barrett or Justice Clarence Thomas, who wrote the opinion on that case. I hope it's Justice Thomas, because we know how much he supports and loves the Second Amendment. But that's not to take anything away from Amy Coney Barrett. But not only will they be deciding the constitutionality of the CCW program in the city of New York, but we have asked them, gun owners of California, gun owners of America, virtually everybody has asked the court to direct lower courts and make more definitive what Justice Scalia said in Heller versus Washington, D.C. that judges should not use judicially created balancing tests in order to consider Second Amendment cases. When they do that, they can justify, and they do, virtually any gun control law as being constitutional. What we have asked the court to do is to direct appellate courts and district courts to the point where they can use nothing but the text, history, and tradition of the meaning of the words of the Second Amendment at the founding. So what did shall not be infringed mean then? If they do that, I believe that it's going to give us an opportunity to file lawsuits to overturn many gun control laws that we have here in California and throughout the country. Now, we know that the court is starting to pay more attention to Second Amendment cases. We just heard yesterday that a case called Bianchi versus Frosch, they have distributed that case. That means that they took the case and they spread it around to all of the justices to consider whether they should grant it certiorari, which means to hear that case. That's in a case having to do with assault weapons. The fact that they did not just deny that case right off the bat is an indication to us that the court is starting to pay attention to the Second Amendment and will no longer treat it as a second-class right. That's super important. But if we get that text, history, and tradition, the potential for fighting to overturn assault weapons ban, magazine ban, ammunition restrictions, microstamping, the roster of safe handguns, the May issue condition of CCWs in the state of California, 10-day waiting period, you name it. All of those things will be challenged. And I believe that we will now have the sledgehammer to get rid of those. That is making the members of the legislature order great quantities of Depends. They fear that that's going to happen, and this whole scandal with the early release or the leaking of the abortion case on Roe v. Wade, that's an issue all in and of itself. But what it tells us is the court is really looking at these cases very carefully.
Okay, so all right, look, I'm going to try to rescue you there. Okay, so the Roe v. Wade thing, regardless, I'm going to make some people mad. So I'm going to rescue you. I'm going to get people mad at me and not at you. Okay, there you go. All right.
People are mad at me all the time. So
I know, me too. The Roe v. Wade thing, regardless of where you stand on abortion, I'm just going to state this now. Just regardless of where you stand on it, if you're watching this, the decision that was written by Alito, that was the draft, if they actually go that way, is very encouraging for Second Amendment rights. You think they have nothing to do with each other, and you're right, they don't. What's encouraging about it is I suspect that most people would agree that they want the courts to adhere to the Constitution. And what Alito did there was bring the court back to the Constitution. He essentially pointed out what everybody has known, including Ruth Bader Ginsburg and others who have said it in the past, that the court manufactured a right in 1973, which does not appear anywhere in the Constitution. And they went to great legal gymnastics in which to do so, and it was not a correct ruling. I'm not saying one way or the other as far as political stances where abortion is concerned. What I'm saying is that constitutionally, the ruling was wrong. It was a bad ruling. And so what the court is probably going to go back and do is they've looked at the Constitution and said, no, this really is not in the Constitution anywhere. And so as the Supreme Court, it's not something we can settle because that's not their job. Their job is not to legislate or create rights that aren't there. Their job is to look at laws and see if they are actually constitutional or not, based upon what the Constitution says, not what somebody might like it to say. So if that ruling comes out that way, yes, abortions will still be available in blue states. They'll still be available here in California, and they'll still be available in other states. Other states are going to restrict them, and it's going to go back to the states where it is a matter of the state legislatures and governors and the people of those states to make those laws, whatever they want to do. That's the way it should have been in the first place. That's what the 1973 court should have done. They didn't. Like I said, now, if I've made you mad, you can be mad at me. That's fine. Don't be mad at Sam. You can get all pissed off at me and you can put nastiness in the comments if you want. My point is that if the court is focused on the actual meaning of the Constitution, which that draft ruling seems to indicate that they are, then they're going to unwind a lot of these unconstitutional restrictions on your Second Amendment rights. I suspect they're going to unwind a lot of restrictions on your First Amendment rights and any other rights. I suspect at some point these unlawful violations of your Fourth Amendment and Sixth Amendment rights to due process and warrants and so on are going to be restored, and these red flag laws are going to be tossed because this court is focused on what does the Constitution say, not what do we want it to say. Mm-hmm. So I'm not arguing the abortion thing one way or the other. Everybody and a grandmother knows that I'm a Christian, and I think how I feel about abortion should be obvious to the most casual of observers. But that's not the point. The point is if the court is focused on what the Constitution actually says, then that bodes well for the enumerated rights in the Constitution, the ones that are actually written down that you can go find. First Amendment, Second Amendment, Third Amendment, nobody talks about, Fourth Amendment, Fifth Amendment, and so on. That's a great thing. That's a great thing. Now, you can send me hate mail about the abortion thing if you wish to. That's fine. That's not the point of the show. But I think it is important for us to understand that this bodes well for the Second Amendment right, First Amendment right, and others. So there you go. Now, I've taken the heat, Sam. It's all on me, baby.
You know what, Joel? People who are wringing their hands about this issue, the court is doing what it did in the Dred Scott case.
Exactly.
Where the court at one point deemed that slavery was constitutional, and the court said, no, it's not. It's not. Our Declaration of Independence, our Constitution gave everybody unalienable rights, no matter what color, what creed, what race, what religion, whatever. And so they overturned the justification for slavery in the country. All they've done is said, hey, listen, this right does not exist in the Constitution. It was manufactured, as you pointed out. This is an issue that has to be decided at the ballot box in each of the states. Right. So in essence, they are supporting the 10th Amendment, states' rights. States' rights,
right. And you don't want state rights. We live in a representative republic. We do not live in a democracy, a pure democracy. And if you don't understand the difference, I urge you to look it up. You'll be very grateful that we don't live in a pure democracy, because a pure democracy ends up with the tyranny of the majority and the minority being experiencing tyranny all the time. That's the reason why the founders created it the way it does. And part of that is states' rights. We have a federal government that was never designed to be as big and powerful as it is. I would love to see it trimmed back to what it's supposed to be.
Yeah. Joel, I like to remind people that after the French Revolution, where they had a pure democracy, that meant that a 50% plus one vote could send anybody they wanted to the guillotine.
Right.
That's what a pure democracy does. We have a representative republic, as you pointed out, that was enumerated by our founding fathers in great wisdom and great deliberation in order to maximize the rights of everyone, the majority and the minority, so that we can participate in the elective process to send representatives to the halls of the legislature, be it Congress or the Senate or in our state legislatures, where we can actually participate by sending representatives. And if we have a representative that we don't believe represents us, it's incumbent upon us to organize people in our district to vote together to change that representative. Right. That's where people get lazy. That's where it's too much work. We can't do that. I can't send $25 to an organization that's doing this or to a candidate or something. Everybody can afford that. If you can afford to pay well, you can, but the $6 a gallon of gasoline,
yeah, who can? Right.
3 gallons of gasoline is going to get you into the elective process and probably have more of an impact on the cost of gasoline than anything else. So I want to encourage people. We need to be involved at every step of the process. Go to our website to find out who your candidates are who support your rights. Be informed about all of the legislation that is impacting your rights. I get phone calls every day from people. Well, what's happening with the magazine laws? Am I still legal if I own all of these magazines, or how come I can't get the latest Smith & Wesson or the latest SIG or the latest Springfield Armory or the latest Kimber or any of these things? And you bite your tongue and you don't want to say, have you been living under a rock? Have you ever supported Gun Owners of California or CRPA or NRA or one of the other organizations that are fighting to protect your rights? No, you explain it to them and you try to encourage them to be a part of the solution instead of being ambivalent to it, which makes you a part of the problem.
Now, look, I don't like Starbucks personally. I don't like them because they burn their coffee and their coffee sucks as far as I'm concerned. And I don't like them because they don't support my rights. But irrespective, I wouldn't go to Starbucks because I don't like Starbucks coffee. It sucks. Yes, gas is $6 a gallon. Eggs or I don't know what. My wife does the shopping. I mean, stuff is expensive. And yet the line at Starbucks hasn't shrunk. The line at the Coffee Bean hasn't shrunk. People are still over there paying $7, $8, $9 for their frou-frou, coffee or whatever. What is it? One of the comedians and something ordered a double decaffeinated half calf with just a twist of lemon or whatever. If you can afford to spend $7 on a stinking cup of coffee, make your coffee at home for a few days. And support Gun Owners of America, or support Gun Owners of America as well, but support Gun Owners of California, for crying out loud. Fight for your rights. They're a lot more important than your coffee at Starbucks or Coffee Bean or wherever the heck you go. Just so that I had to call it out while I had the opportunity, for crying out loud. Sam, is there anything else we should talk about, or have we about covered it?
Joel, I think we've just about covered everything that's going on and given people an opportunity to be engaged. That's really important. I long for the day when I get to watch all of your videos and I get to see and experience your experience with reloading products, with guns, with shooting techniques, with the stuff that we all love, the stuff that brought us into the arena of protecting the Second Amendment, because we love all these things. I look forward to that day. Very anxiously. So
let me give you a vision of hope. All right, as you know, we have our hunting property, ranch, whatever you want to call it, over in Arizona in the mountains. Uh-huh. In California, we have the California Rifle and Pistol Association, Gun Owners of California. We're all focused on all these court cases and the right stuff and the legislature and like that. In Arizona, we have organizations in Arizona too. And in Arizona, they're just focused on hunting and, shooting and the shooting sports and like that. And maybe they spend that much of their time on all this legalese stuff because they don't have the fight. They don't have the fight. That's why people move to places like that, because they don't have the fight. Well, I'm here. Sam's here because we're fighting the fight. But if you ever want vision of what California could be if we fight the fight together, it could be like Arizona. And it should be. And I think if we fight together and we work hard, it will be. It just isn't going to happen in the next week or two. So even if you're out of state, if you're from Arizona, hey, I'm a Calazone myself. Support gun owners of California, for crying out loud. I'll put the link in the description. Sam, thank you so very much. Have a great week, brother. And I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Joel, thank you for the opportunity to, as we like to say at Gun Owners of California, arm and informed your listeners and our supporters with what they need in order to protect their rights. I appreciate you so much as being a beacon of light, a voice that is heard by so many people and gives us the opportunity to provide information so that they become informed. So God bless you. Appreciate you very much. And I look forward to our next meeting.
All right, brother. Be safe.
You too.
Thank you very much for sitting through the entire interview. I realized that this video was pretty long, and he just had a lot to talk about. I will split it in half and use it in the GunGuyTV Firearms podcast, the audio podcast. So if you didn't get to see the whole thing and you would like to listen to it perhaps while you're driving to work or home or whatever, look for it there. In the next couple of episodes, it should be posted, and that way you can do it on audio. Once again, that podcast is on your favorite podcast player. It's on, I think, pretty much all of them, Spotify and so on. So you shouldn't have any trouble finding it. Have a wonderful week. Thank you so very much for everything you do for the Second Amendment, for the Constitution, and for the country. And wherever you go, whatever you do, be safe.